thank you so much for joining me today. Let's tell our viewers who you are and what do you do.
My name's Eric, and I'm a DJ and producer from St Helens.
So first of all, tell me some of your biggest achievements then.
So some of the things I'm most proud of is the success of all the music that I've produced, gaining hundreds of thousands of streams online. And I've also put on events with artists such as Anton Powers, Kira Weathers, Owen Norton, big names which I've all organised myself and ran.
So let's tell our viewers as well, kind of why DJing then? Why start DJing and producing music? What made you want to do that?
So I've been DJing and producing for about 5 years, and at first it was just something I'd heard of when I was a kid, and then I got my first set of decks, and then from then it's just took off, and I've made it serious as the years have gone on.
Amazing. So in terms of DJ and producing then, and obviously events, how have you found the lockdown and the restrictions that have put that to a hold?
So, I mean, like, there's been positives and negatives to it all. Some positive being I've had loads of studio time, got loads of new music made. But obviously the negatives being there's been no events, no gigs. So it's been harder to get my name out because there's no gigs, but through social media and putting out new music, it's been not too bad for me, really. Yeah.
Amazing. So then in terms of events that you would hold, how do you think you're going to adapt coming out of the lockdown and, you know, obviously hopefully the restrictions lifting? How are you going to kind of adjust to that in terms of you hosting events?
So, I mean, like, we're obviously going to have to see what happens, really, because there's no way to predict what events are going to be like in the future. But if everything goes back to the way it was, which would be the best case scenario, I'm looking at getting events every month, maybe, just to try and, because everyone's going to want to go out and have fun. Yeah. So we need to facilitate that.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to try and do the most.
Amazing. So in terms of before COVID then, your events, was you kind of heading that way for one a month then before lockdown?
Yeah, because I finished school last year. I'm 16, by the way, yeah. Yeah, so as soon as I'd finished school, I was planning on taking the events to the next level, the music to the next level. But obviously COVID hit and that's all had to come to a standstill.
Yeah, so have you adapted in any way then to, obviously you said it come to a standstill, and obviously you said you've had a lot more time in the studio. Obviously one way you've adapted is, you know, spending more time in the studio, but in terms of kind of profiting and obviously business and producing stuff like that, how have you adapted to all these changes then?
So obviously there's no money coming in from gigs, so I've had to put loads more emphasis on the marketing for the music to try and get more royalties in, and that's gone pretty well. I mean, the single I released last, which was all during lockdown, made during lockdown, that's currently on nearly 60,000 streams, which is a hefty amount for one song. So
has there been any kind of positive things that have happened? Obviously you said, you know, you spent more studio time. So would you say you've produced a lot more songs during lockdown than you would ever have done previously?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, because I just finished school, there was no work or anything set. So from March until now, really, just been pure making music. I've been collaborating with loads of different people virtually, obviously. So yeah, a lot more stuff that I've had the time for.
So would you say one of the positive gains then has been kind of networking with people via social media?
Yeah, definitely.
And how found that comparing to how maybe you would usually meet them in like a coffee shop, or, you know, you go grab some food and stuff like that? How have you found doing it over social media?
I mean, there's positives and negatives again, but I mean, obviously the negatives being we can't record together, so it's a bit harder. But with Zoom calls and all social media. It's been, I mean, it's not been the worst thing, but obviously it would have been better to get in the studio together, build a vibe, because obviously more stuff comes from that. But I feel like we've done well with what we've had.
Yeah. And then in terms of the restrictions lifting and things progressing, where would you say you see yourself within terms of your like 1, 2, 3, and 5 year plan and things like that? Where do you kind of see yourself going within the future?
Yeah, well, obviously with the music, uh, this has helped a lot to get more music out. So when it comes to my goal of getting signed to a big label, which is one of my main goals, uh, that's helped a lot. But obviously with the events and my DJing and getting in clubs and stuff like that, that's hit. But I feel like if everything can go back to the way it was, it'll I'll be able to come back with a bang and try and make as much impact on the industry as I can.
Amazing. So kind of that impact on the industry then, would you, what kind of things would you want to be doing then? Would, in terms of the events, would it be like just you DJing, or would it be, would you have other guests on, and how would you, obviously hosting it, how would you do it COVID friendly?
Yeah, so it obviously wouldn't just be me. I'd try and get as many DJs as possible, as big as I possibly can. Uh, and then COVID friendly, we'd have to see what the restrictions would be. But obviously, if mask wearing was mandatory, then we'd have to look into that. Smaller capacities, maybe. But obviously, that then brings more challenges, as it's harder to make the event viable if you can only sell half the amount of tickets or whatever.
Yeah. So would that be kind of a negative impact then in terms of your sales? Would you have to put on more events then to get kind of the audience that you want?
Yeah, definitely. Because the bigger the venue for social distancing, the higher the cost for the venue, which means you then have to pump up the prices for tickets, which is then harder to promote. So it just keeps on going and going. So obviously the dream case scenario is no social distancing, and we can just get as big a venue as possible, and then we can charge as much as we want and
Yeah.
not have any limitations.
Yeah. So obviously with the current restrictions then, how, if you were to put an event on, I'm not sure how the whole tier system does work, but, say you put an event on then, would you, obviously you said your ideal event would want to be, as many people. What audience kind of amount are you looking at then? Are you looking at like 100, 200, into the thousands, or?
Yeah, I think with the tier two, uh, live events can go on, but at half capacity with social distancing. So, say the venue capacity was 200, you'd only be able to sell 100 tickets, uh, and the price of the venue would go off promoters selling 200 tickets. So we'd have to pump up the prices at least half more. Uh, and then obviously with the social distancing, we'd have to make sure the venue was big enough to have 2 meters apart, everyone. And then all the other restrictions like hand sanitizer and everything, we'd all need that in place, which all comes at a cost.
Yeah. So then obviously, in future now, and coming out of the restrictions, have you got anything planned? So, when all the restrictions do get lifted, what do you have planned to come back with a bang?
Yeah, well, I've got loads of new music that I'm just waiting on getting finished. And I've got a lot of summer music as well that I'm waiting for summer to come to hit, to release. So hopefully, I'm praying that we'll be more like reality, more back to normal by the summer. And hopefully that will help. And then in terms of the events, uh, I'm hoping that we can. Well, I've got loads of different things planning at the moment, uh, but I know that Miguel from MD Creatives has just took over the Citadel, so that could be a potential good venue for hosting events, and also just trying to find other places around Merseyside, and then just promoting as hard as we can, because everyone's going to want to go out, and that is something that we need to just make sure that we're ready for as soon as it's possible.
Yeah. So then would you say you are ready and prepared then for when all the restrictions do lift and, you know, we can go back to normal? Are you prepared and ready to go out there then and really smash it?
Yeah, definitely. I've got loads of different people all working as a team with me to get stuff ready just for when it happens. Because there's no way of knowing when it's going to happen, but hopefully with the vaccine and everything, it should be sometime soon.
So what has been your latest release then in music?
So I've just released a brand new single 2 weeks ago, I think now, called Believe. That was in collaboration with Bailey Waterhouse and Rachel English, who are two Irish singer-songwriters. It's a cover of Believe by Cher, and it's since we released it, it's got loads of great feedback, and I'm really happy with the response. Yeah.
Amazing. So where can all our viewers find your new single?
So it's out on all platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, and if you search for Believe and then Eric McKenna, but instead of E's, 3's, which is a bit complicated, but just type it in and it should come up.
Amazing. Well, I just want to say, you know, a massive thank you for coming on and for kind of telling me how you've adapted to COVID. Obviously, this season of the show is all about adapting to COVID and how people and businesses have adapted and, you know, the changes they've had to make due to the coronavirus. So just do want to say a huge thank you for coming on and chatting with me.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
I hope to see you soon out of lockdown.
Definitely.